Boogie Wonderland, Earth, Wind and Fire on BBC Radio Manchester, and it's the weekend. Let's face it, if you're feeling like you don't want to do anything that's really going to sort of stress your brain out, go to the cinema, kick the feet up and just enjoy yourselves, right? A little bit later on today, we're going to be talking to Guy. We're talking to a guy about a guy who's in a musical called Guy. So for the next wee while, it's going to be about movies and about entertainment as well, because that play is coming to Manchester as well, right? I'm intrigued, you will be too, right? It's time to grab your popcorn first of all, though, with film critic Van Connor, and is a man who's got a very busy weekend ahead of him. Van, happy Oscars weekend to you.
Thank you very much, Connor. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you and your sort of movie reviewing mates, is this kind of like Christmas and Hanukkah and Easter all come at once?
To be honest, I've always called it the Film Critics Super Bowl, personally.
That's a good shout. That's a good term to use now. We're going to talk about the big, I suppose, the movies that are going to make massive waves from an Oscar perspective very shortly. But let's talk about a few movies that are out this weekend, if we can, just to start off with, right? First of all, I want to talk about Birds of Prey. Tell me a little bit about this.
Birds of Prey, new movie from Cathy Yan, and it's the latest entry into the DC Extended Universe canon, the DCEU. You know, the movie franchise that started out back in 2013 with Man of Steel and has given us such gems as Justice League, Suicide Squad, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and my personal favourite, and I think prior to this, the only actually good one, Shazam. This, just to cut through the middle of this one, this is the second best one of these after Shazam. And the idea here is to depict Harley Quinn as a sort of a scorned girlfriend. It follows on from the events of Suicide Squad. She's had enough of her relationship with the Joker, that toxic relationship they share. She's dumped him. She's branched out on her own. But it turns out that without the big bad criminal mastermind boyfriend there to work as a sort of a buffer, everyone she's antagonized for years and years previously is coming out of the woodworks looking for blood and revenge. They're pound of flesh.
How's this going to work? Because, right, the Suicide Squad movie, although it made a bundle of pound notes in the cinema, it was absolutely panned by the critics. How do you think this is going to be grasped?
I'm happy to say that. I mean, I was one of the critics who absolutely panned Suicide Squad, and it absolutely deserved it. That film was a travesty. Birds of Prey, I can delightfully say, is light years above that. It's a lot more energetic, fun, engaging. It's got that sort of a nasty, violent sensibility that Suicide Squad had, but by repackaging it as sort of a Joan Jett-style neon kind of a good time film, it does have a lot more going for it, and it does play a lot better.
Okay, this is what it's going to sound like.
They're all here for me. Aren't they?
No.
They're not?
No, they're not. Do you know what that means? That means he's not just after the kid anymore. He's after all of us. Sure as hell after me. I just robbed him. You just betrayed him. You just killed his BFF. And you're dumb enough to be building a case against him. So, unless we all want to die very unpleasant deaths and let Roman go finger fishing in the kid's intestinal tract, we're going to have to work together.
I'm going to call her Margot Robbie, because that accent's really stuck with her for a few movies now. I'm not always a big fan of asking movie reviewers to mark something out of 10 or give it a mark out of 5, but if it had a classification sort of in school, an A, B or a C, what would you give it?
I'd give it a B. I think it worked. I think, like all of these movies, it falls apart in the third act, but even the best ones of these, that's always been the case, even Wonder Woman, for instance. So I think it's a good time. I think it's got its flaws, but it's definitely one of the better offerings.
Right, I'm hearing from, I suppose, fellow film critics and colleagues of yourself, having read a little bit about this last evening, I'm hearing that, well, this might not be the movie that we all thought it was.
We've no choice but to embark on this perilous journey.
Everyone pack your bags!
You can talk to animals.
Babies cry, watch them grow, learn much more.
Of course, we're talking about Dr. Dolittle, and Van, answer me this, right? There aren't too many movies that are released in January and February that cost in the region of £150 million. Is this saying something about this release, Dr. Dolittle?
I think so. I mean, what says more about it is that the clip we have isn't a clip, because there are no clips available for this film. They've not made any available. So that is actually a clip from the trailer. And the reason there are no clips available is because I'm pretty sure everyone involved in this film would like it to go away and never be heard from again. And that's why it's out in January and February.
Why is it so bad? Because look at the cast. Robert Downey Jr.'s got an excellent career. Holmes and Watson went well. Iron Man's obviously an absolute phenomenon. He's got money, he's got a director, he's got a studio behind him. Why is it pants?
First of all, he's also produced this with his wife under their Team Downey banner, and it's proven quite a difficult prospect. So the idea here is that they wanted to create a franchise. They wanted a new brand for him to take on after retiring the Iron Man jersey, as he puts it. And it's been reshot at the halfway mark. There are at least 3 different films on display, and it's an absolute shambles. No one scene naturally blends into the one that follows it. There's an accent that feels like it's been dubbed after the fact, but doesn't make any sense either way, and you really want to know how bad it was to begin with. It's got numerous moments that simply do not track with what you're watching on screen, like a sequence in which Robert Downey Jr. Congratulates all his characters on things they've achieved, despite the fact that they've done none of those things in the hour you watched previously. It's a real mess of a film.
So let me see him. Have a little look here. Budget 175 million. So far it's made 131 million back. It hasn't even wiped its own face. Will it?
I don't think it will, and I think what's shooting it in the foot even further is that in light of the quarantine and everything in China, the US distribution for this in China has been cancelled, and they were really hoping on that to edge it further towards the not a complete loss marker.
Well, listen, let's touch on the Oscars over the next couple of days. Where's your money? Where's the smart money?
I mean, the smart money obviously is on 1917 for this year. It did very well at the BAFTAs. I think it will do equally well with, I think, maybe one exception at the Oscars. I think, like the BAFTAs, Bong Joon-ho may win Best Director for Parasite. But other than that, I think it will probably win Best Picture. It will definitely win Best Cinematography, sound mixing and sound editing, things like that. It will win as well. I think 1917 could very easily be the one that walks away with the most this year.
What about Joker?
Now, Joker is a cert for Best Actor. I think that's just the easiest bet in the world. This will take Best Actor. I would like to see it, and it did win the BAFTA for this as well, but I would like to see it take the Oscar for Best Original Score for Hilda Guanatia, Icelandic composer, who just did a really amazing job on this film.
It really made it eerie and a very different film than I expected, and I think the soundtrack was a lot to do with that.
Absolutely. And actually, it's something that Birds of Prey shares as well. Daniel Pemberton doing the score for Birds of Prey has a very similar kind of creepy, eerie effect.
What's going to surprise us, and what's going to be the big British story over the next couple of nights, and specifically in the Oscars?
As I say, I think 1917 is where the British money lies. I would have liked to have seen Florence Pugh win her Best Supporting Actress nomination for this, but I think Laura Dern's kind of edged her out on that now for Marriage Story.
I watched Fighting With My Family again the other evening, which was her breakout movie, the Stephen Merchant movie on The Rock about wrestling. She really is a star in the making, isn't she?
She really is. I fell instantly in love with her in the movie Lady Macbeth about 2 years ago, and I thought there's something to this actress. She will go places, and it only took about 18 months to be proved right, I was very happy to say.
And how will the Oscars play out this weekend with no host yet again? What's your feeling on this?
I mean, it worked well enough last year. I don't think anyone watched last year's ceremony and felt like there was anything truly missing. There were enough component pieces there, with all the musical performances and everything in that typically come with this. It's a variety show that usually works. The host is only usually sort of seasoning for it, and last year proved that wasn't entirely necessary anymore.
And there's always one thing or one movie that comes out of the Oscars and everyone goes, oh my word, I have to see this. I have to see. I think for me, it was the documentary Icarus last year. It was the Netflix documentary which went on to win, I think, documentary of the Oscars, or it won the documentary Oscar, if that's the right terminology. Is there anything that you've seen that maybe is a little bit outside the box?
I think, to be honest, one of the big contenders is a film that most of the general public, especially in the UK, simply will wind up not seeing, and that's Parasite. I think Parasite, which is Bong Joon-ho's new South Korean language film, this is in cinemas as of yesterday. You can see this, I think, largely through Curzon Cinemas, but it is in some bigger chains in in fewer screenings as well. But absolutely amazing film. I can't tell you too much about it because so much is contingent on the surprise factor.
Okay.
But it is a genuine belter of one of the best films I've seen this century. I think it's terrific.
Wow. Van, where can we see you, read you, and get your insight into what's going to happen tomorrow night?
Well, you can find me regularly on Fridays on the Off-Screen podcast with Rebecca Perfect, with whom I will be teaming tomorrow night on Talk Radio and Talk Sport as the Oscars
What are you
are live.
doing?
We're flipping between two.
Look at you coming on here plugging another... I was giving you the perfect opportunity to tell the world where we can, check you out as an independent broadcaster, and then you go and throw other radio stations under the bus. Fan, I'm shocked and appalled. Shocked and appalled.
I asked for the BBC paycheck. I asked.
Imagine working for another radio station. Van, it's lovely to talk to you, mate, and I hope you have a great weekend. I hope the Oscars tomorrow night is all that you expect. All right.
Pleasure. Thanks, Connor.
Great to touch base. That's Van Connor on BBC Radio Manchester.